Hey YouTube, welcome and welcome back to the channel. This is Arts of the Round Table. My name is Mello. It's been a while since I showed my mug in these videos, and it's also been a while since I've done some portrait practice. So that's what today's video is going to be. In today's video, I'll be sharing my full process from sketch to signature, blemishes and all. Check this out. I did these two paintings using my Himi gouache with a limited palette of earth yellow, vermilion, black and white, which is the Zorn palette, and I also included sky blue as my accent color. Blue is one of my favorite colors, and I love adding it to my palette. One other thing I did, and I'll show you that in this video, is as I try to preserve my pencil sketches, my drawing, using two different methods. On the right hand side, I used clear gesso, and on the left hand side I used fixative first and then the gesso after, and I'll show you the results and we'll talk about how that changed the texture of this paper. This isn't very expensive paper. This is cheap mixed media paper. It does what it's supposed to do, but I wanted to see what it would feel like with some texture on it. So that's what I did. I did it for two reasons. One, for the texture of the paper, and the other was to preserve my pencils. So man, enough with the backstory. Let's get with the sketches. For the first sketch, I go to my go-to comfort portrait drawing, the slight profile bust. I've done these type of drawings so many times. They really are a great way for me to just fall back into something that's comfortable, while also trying to experiment with different things, you know. I need that level of comfort sometimes because I don't know what the results of all this is going to be. There are no roadmaps in this creative journey of ours, just the path we leave behind to get where we're going. My tools are simple: 2H lead in the blue holder, 2B lead in my silver pencil holder, and a kneaded eraser. I have a question for my fellow artists out there that watch this. What is the drawing book that you first used to learn proportions of the human form, the face, the arms, whatever? For me, it was the VHS version of a book, even though I have a copy of that book now, was Stan Lee's and John Buscema's How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I still use everything that I've learned from just poring over that book to this day, the way I measure the heads, the way I kind of like manipulate the heads for my cartoonish looks, to the measurements of the human form. Later on in my creative career, my artistic career, I've learned of Hogarth and Loomis and tried to implement those methods, which they're all the same. One is cribbed after the other, but for me it was Marvel Comics. I would be interested to hear what you guys use, what's in your back burner in terms of your mental back burner and Rolodex of what you use when you're doing your portraits or paintings or drawings. At this point, I'm really satisfied with the drawing, but I wanted to tighten up some of the details and not have it so messy. So I'm using my kneaded eraser and I'm just rolling it over the whole image to remove any of the excess or loose graphite from the 2B lead. 2B is very soft. You can get a lot of cool smudging, which is not what I wanted at the moment. I just wanted a sharper line. So what I ended up doing here is using my kneaded eraser and just removing a layer of it and making it, lowering the opacity, so to speak, of the full drawing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to resharpen that 2B lead, and I'm going to iron out the lines that I want. This allows me to generalize my shapes and to keep focused on what is important, which you'll notice me emphasize the deep shadows near his eyes, under the nose, beard, and jawline. Yes, I want to draw as detailed as possible and preserve those lines for painting, but I'm also wanting to avoid muddying up the painting if there's too much details. Again, at this point, I have no idea how any of this thing is going to come out. I have no idea how the gesso is going to react. I don't know how the gouache is going to react, so I'm simply trying to stay in my lane, trying to avoid those things and try to keep it simple. With the drawing done, it was time to add the gesso. I didn't know it was the standard amount to use, so 2 good of gesso on the page, and then I just brushed back and forth in both directions, vertical and horizontal, until I covered the whole page. I have no idea why I did that to the panel, but I did. So about an hour and a half later, when it was completely dry and set, it was on to the next one. My approach for this part of the drawing was a little bit different. I didn't want to put any constraints on my drawing. I wanted to do it as if this was the whole intention. I was going to put as much effort and detail and just finish as much as the pencils as possible. All of this experimenting with the gouache and trying to preserve came up with the idea, with the concept of me wanting to preserve my pencil or my line work or my ink work before I paint. I was tending to simplify my drawings because I wasn't comfortable painting. But I watched and I've learned from a lot of other artists where they say the best fundamental practice is to have a good drawing before you paint. So I was basically doing the reverse of what I was learning from these other great artists. So my idea and my purpose for the painting of the young lady here was to make it as detailed and as if it was going to be the best drawing I did. So as smooth and as textured as humanly possible without worrying about what's going to happen in the future. That way of thinking was extremely freeing. There were no pretenses. Yes, I was hoping it would all turn out successful, of course, but I also was not worried about it failing. The way I was with the first drawing. All I kept thinking, if at all, was just wait and see when you get there. It allowed me to enjoy the drawing so much more, and it actually made me look forward to what was to come. I was genuinely curious, but I was also in the moment. It's kind of a weird experience to describe. The one thing I was unable to show was the spraying of the fixative on this side of the paper. I had to do it outside, and I recommend that you do so as well if you're going to use this product, if you can, or in a very, very ventilated area. But you can immediately notice how clear and sharp the pencil drawing was before I applied the gesso, and how sharp and clear it appears after the gesso has dried and cured. It was a very promising outcome. Also, the paper no longer feels the same. It's rougher and has a more tactile texture, and it was quite pleasing to the touch. With all the setup done and all the prep done, now it's time for the first real step of the experiment and get to the painting. For both paintings I used an underpainting, and for the left I used burnt sienna, a very, very pigmented wash, and on the right I used light gray as the main undertone, and then messed around and used some of the watered down burnt sienna on some of the parts of the face just to see what happens, and I was extremely happy with the way both came out. I was initially worried that the paint wouldn't adhere to the paper because of all of the protective layers, but there were no issues whatsoever. The colors moved freely on the paper and dried better than I expected. The one thing I immediately noticed when I started the painting, though, was how active the paint remained when I placed it on the paper, meaning it didn't dry as quickly as I'm used to. It allowed for blending to be done a lot sooner. But it also became a challenge pretty quickly for me. Instead of painting slower, I actually started painting faster, which was counterintuitive. I wasn't allowing the true colors in the beginning to appear, and I kept trying to coerce it to happen. I was trying to get to the finish line before I even started the race. I didn't allow the paints to dry, so I kept reactivating previous layers as I went along, which is a trait of gouache that can be beautifully exploited, or it can be brutally unforgiving. And I think in the beginning here, I was skirting along those lines the whole time. I have a very difficult time getting through what artists know as the ugly phase. I always feel a sense of stress sometimes when I get there, because it's not what I'm expecting, it's not what's in my mind. But I have to be a lot more patient, especially in this medium, and it's something that I'm still working on. That said, this was a very fun painting to do. Both of these were. As the process went on, I became more and more comfortable with how the paints were being applied, and I was blending freely. I was seeing how the colors were interacting, and I started to be more expressive with my brush strokes. It felt like something I haven't done before. You know, I'm just going to let you watch without me blabbing on for a bit. By the time I started the second painting, I was so much in the moment, I can't even explain it. Everything that felt challenging with the first painting was gone. Not that I didn't have the same doubts or the worries, I just knew that if I keep going, it was all going to turn out fine. I kept reminding myself what these were for. It was just to get better. And I was bringing my drawings to life with paint, and it felt really good. And I just kept telling myself that this was all an experiment. No matter what happens, you did something. And that felt very positive to me. And with this painting, you can tell that the quote unquote ugly stage came really early. But this time, I expected it. And I didn't care. I just kept building the forms and shapes with colors. Because I knew what to expect, you will notice how less experimental and more deliberate my brush strokes are. It really is amazing in hindsight how different both of these paintings felt during the process. All of the colors, all of the techniques, and the brushes are all the same. And it's all about confidence, which makes me laugh inside because it is one of the things that I most struggle with, confidence. But in here, in this moment, because I was just in it, my confidence was high, and I was having a blast with these paintings. And there it is, the ending of our portrait practice. And in my honest opinion, I think the way the gesso, with or without the fixative, worked amazingly. It protected my detailed pencils. And when I started painting, despite the on-the-job learning curve, the colors remained earthy and realistic. They blended extremely well. It made the process of painting challenging, but fulfilling. I think it's the best I've done so far. It has an uncanny valley of realism and cartoonishness, which is my style. And if I'm going to continue to be honest with myself, there really are parts in here that are muddy. I know that. There's places that I've overworked. and it reminds me of where I should be more thoughtful and patient. But I can sit back and critique these and pinpoint all the places that bother me until the sun comes out. But in all honesty, every time I look at these, since I've painted them, I feel it is the best I've done so far. And it makes me very proud, and it makes me look forward to the future. The progression is real, as long as you continue to put your work and your heart into what you're doing. And that puts a smile on my face. The gesso, no matter how you use it, it really is a game changer. And it may be in my art process when it comes to painting from now on. So, with that, thank you so much for watching. Please share with me your thoughts, your creative and honest criticisms. I look forward to the engagement, and it means a lot to me. And if you're still here, leave me a like. And why not subscribe and join me on my creative journey? Thank you so much for your time. My name is Mello. This is Arts of the Round Table. And like always, I'll draw you later. Bye-bye.